Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So question for you. When was the last time you changed jobs? Well, I can tell you the answer to that, and for me it has been within 3 years. Because today I want to talk to you about why changing jobs on a more regular basis is actually positive for your career. Yes, you heard me correctly. I want to tell you that changing your job every 3 years is a good thing, and it goes against what you've been told before, because if you change your job every 3 years, you become far more employable. You might be sitting there thinking, Brendan, you're talking absolute nonsense. Well, if that's the case, why don't we get stuck in? If you're new here, my name is Brendan. I'm a recovering accountant based here in London, and I help millennials navigate busy lives and make sure that work doesn't suck. Do you like my jacket? Actually, you know, I've got a nice yellow pocket square. I thought I'd dress up for you guys today because this one is all around changing jobs, and that means interviews. As mentioned in the intro, I'm here to talk to you today about why changing jobs is actually a good thing, and I believe it's something that we should all consider more often. Back in the day when you went to your careers department, if they had one at school, the chances are you were told to work hard, get a good job, work hard, get a good job, stay for longer, get a good job, work hard, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, changing jobs on a regular basis was certainly frowned upon. But in the modern age and the millennials, whoop, whoop, we've managed to change and dispel a lot of the traditional rules. Means that actually changing jobs far more accepted and generally not poo-pooed as it has been in the past. But why should you change your jobs? Well, that is a good question. And with that, I'm going to give you my 5 tips as to why I think you should change jobs more regularly. Number 1, it means that you know your market worth. Market worth? How much you're valued. Now, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'm worth this, that and the other, but in much the same way, something's only worth what somebody will pay for it, like houses, for example, although I'm not confessing to compare yourself to a house. Understanding what your market worth is really important. Like, the value that you bring to a business is what you can articulate in the marketplace. As you start off your career, your market value is reasonably low. It's because it is based on what you know. So the more you know, the more value you have. That's why as you accumulate skills and experience and you go through the pain of learning things on the job, your value grows, and ultimately you will hopefully achieve the goals that you want to. For those that reach the C-suite, i.e. Chief Executive, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operations Officer, etc., they have perceived high market value based on what they've done, but that's how they are compared in the marketplace. So if you want to attract a really good C-suite person, the chances are you're going to have to pay a premium. But in the same way that you can have a really specialist and highly skilled developer, then their market value is going to be high too, based on previous experience and track record. If you don't change jobs, how do you know what your value is? In much the same way, if you don't get a house valued, you won't know until somebody offers it to you, and then at that point it might actually be less than you were expecting. Now, it's important to make sure that there isn't this huge disconnect between, you know, just starting out your career and you want to earn hundreds of thousands of pounds, for example, because that, well, unless you create an app that goes absolutely bonkers, is unlikely to happen. But making sure that you understand what you're worth and what you're doing marries up to your expectation of that value is really key. If you stay in a business for 10, 15, 20 years, I actually think your value goes down. You can become institutionalized. Yes, you can have certain changes of jobs within that one role, but really? How do you know what you're actually worth until you dip your toe in the marketplace? So with that, think about when you last changed your role and what your current market value is. Number 2 is all about you become much better at branding yourself. Nobody likes being the new boy or the new girl on the block and having to walk into an office on the first day and be like, hi, I'm the new kid on the block. But the benefit of doing that means that you get to practice and improve your personal branding. It only takes to look on LinkedIn to realize that everybody's trying to brand themselves in a way that gives off a particular persona. If you get stuck in a role or stay in a particular role for a long period of time, you don't get the chance to challenge yourself and understand what everybody else is doing as well as those that do have to do it on a regular basis. There's nothing more scary than sitting in front of somebody when you want a particular job, knowing that you have to present yourself as a brand and articulate things in the right way. In much the same way I'm having to present my brand in building this channel. You have to do that when you change jobs. In order to change jobs, you have to interview, and in order to interview, you have to present yourself and you have to build your brand. What are you known for? What's your online presence? How are you going to articulate that you are an expert in your particular field? Staying somewhere for 10, 15 years, there's less inclination to do so, and that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it is more unlikely. So just think about it. For what you're trying to achieve, having a good personal brand in the marketplace is usually really, really critical, especially if you want to become an expert. Number 3 is all about maintaining a good understanding of what excellent is. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, but let me explain. So in the not too distant past, I used to work for a construction consultancy. Yes, yep, that was me. I have had to wear a hard hat in the past and walk around sewage works, but in much the same way you want to continue to challenge yourself and make sure that you're on point and you know the latest trends. If you stay in somewhere for a long period of time, how do you know what good looks like? Now, the story I want to tell you is when I was at this particular place, we had a town hall. So everybody gets together and the senior management stand up and they tell you the direction the business is going and all the key pertinent points that people want to take away. And if you try not to fall asleep, then you'll probably listen to a few things that are happening over the forthcoming weeks and months. But in this instance, we heard the story about how the COO had started in the post room and grown all the way through to becoming Chief Operating Officer, which, you know what, I take my hat off, because that's certainly a great endeavour. But when they started talking about we have the best systems and processes in the marketplace, I posed the question of, well, where else have you worked? How do you know what good looks like? And that's when he articulated that he started in the post room and now was at the top of the tree. I struggled with that, I'll be honest, because how do you know what good looks like if you've got nothing else to compare it to? That's when echo chambers come to mind. Now, I'm not suggesting that they didn't have the best processes, but it is really difficult to challenge and make sure that you're leading the way, especially if you want to become an expert in a particular field, if you don't know what your competitors are doing. So with that, number 3 is all around maintaining a good confidence that you know what excellent is. Number 4 is all about creating and establishing excellent internal skills. That really means almost becoming a consultant. If you have to introduce yourselves and build rapport and create relationships on a more recurring basis, you learn the skills of being able to work with difficult people, with new people, with those with different ideas, those that challenge you in different ways. I've had to do it. My approach is very consultant based. That's just how I work. That's also why I'm a life coach, because I want to help understand what the problem is to then determine what the solution could look like, but you can only do so if you understand the exam question, then you know the time and effort needed to get there. So that comes about from having to do it on a recurring basis. If you get pigeonholed into a particular role, it's difficult to break free from that. So the more often you have to change, the more often you have to keep the skills of being able to understand the situation and identify the problems and work with people. Otherwise you become institutionalized, you become lazy, you become stuck in a particular role, and a job for life, well, quite frankly, no longer exists anymore. So the more often you change, the better you become at becoming an internal consultant. Too many becomings in that sentence, but you know what I mean. And finally, number 5, which I think is the most important one, is you don't become scared of change. Oh my word. You would not believe the number of people that turned around when I was having my first career break and said, God, I'd love to be doing what you're doing. Well, it's easy. You quit with nothing to go to. That's it. Now, the flippant part aside, what they were trying to say is they were too scared to take the plunge. There's a fear of money. Can we pay the bills? There's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear of what if. There's basically an attraction to stay within the comfort zone. Now, I've written in the past around how the comfort zone is where dreams and ambitions go to die, and the fear of change is real. If you get stuck in a particular role, it's highly likely that the fear of moving will keep you where you are, even if you don't want to stay. Now really, building on my experience in the past, there are 3 main reasons why people stay. 1, they're too afraid to leave. They just don't know, they're scared, they don't know what to do. 2, too easy. Skating under the radar, staying low profile and just doing what they need to do so that it isn't too much of a hard life is 1. And 3, they are actually waiting to leave, they're just trying to find the right moment. But staying where you are because you're too afraid to leave is not the answer. Well, it is the answer if you want to stay in a job that you don't enjoy. That's it. But if you want something more fulfilling and you're not in that position at the moment, then you need to make a change. Now on that point, I want to give you a Brucey bonus tip in how I determine when the time is right to move on. Now for me, it generally comes down to 2 criteria. Firstly, have I still got the respect for the people I work for? And 2, have I stopped learning? If both of those happen, then that means that it is time for a change. Now you need to come up with your own criteria, but if you find those useful, please do write a comment below. Otherwise, please click the subscribe button. But if you found that useful, please do watch this video here where I talk about my career advice to date. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.